The afternoon light filtered through the lace curtains of Benedetto's, casting soft patterns across the worn wooden tables. It was the kind of Italian restaurant where 3 generations might gather on a Sunday, where the smell of simmering tomato sauce had seeped into the very walls over 40 years. Maria Chen stood by the kitchen door, smoothing her apron for the 3rd time in as many minutes. At 28, she still carried the quietness of someone who'd learned early to make herself small. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and her hands, though steady when carrying plates, trembled slightly now as she watched the dining room fill with an unusual crowd. The regular Tuesday lunch service had transformed into something else entirely. Men in crisp suits had arrived an hour earlier, speaking in low tones as they inspected the room. Then came the family. She recognized Vincent Castellano immediately. Everyone in the neighborhood knew his face, though most pretended not to. He was a man whose presence commanded respect and caution in equal measure, but it was the elderly gentleman being helped through the door who made Maria's breath catch. He moved slowly, leaning on a cane, his weathered face carrying the map of 8 decades. Vincent's father, Giuseppe. She'd heard he rarely left his home anymore, that he'd come to America 60 years ago and never quite let go of the old country. Maria's manager, Tom, appeared at her elbow. His usually jovial face was tense. "Maria, I need you to take the main table, the Castellano party." Her eyes widened. "Tom, maybe Sarah called in sick. You're the best I have today." His voice softened. "I know you're nervous, but just treat them like any other guests. Polite, professional. You'll be fine." She wanted to protest, to explain that it wasn't just nervousness. It was the weight of expectation. The fear of making a mistake in front of people who seemed to operate by different rules. But Tom was already walking away, and the family was settling into their seats. Maria took a slow breath, the way her grandmother had taught her years ago. In through the nose, out through the mouth. She picked up the menus and crossed the dining room. As she approached, the conversations quieted. 10 pairs of eyes turned toward her, but it was Giuseppe's gaze that held her. His eyes were cloudy with age but sharp with intelligence, and something else. Loneliness, perhaps. The kind that comes from outliving your own time. "Buonasera," she said softly, then hesitated. The Italian she'd learned from her nonna wasn't quite like this, but something about Giuseppe's face, the way he held himself, reminded her of the old men in her grandmother's village during that one precious summer she'd spent in Sicily. The words came almost without thinking. "Buonasera, Patri. Come sta?" "Good evening, Father. How are you?" The effect was immediate and absolute. Silence descended like a curtain. Giuseppe's head lifted, his eyes suddenly bright. Someone's fork clinked against a plate and went still. Vincent Castellano leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Where did you learn to speak like that?" Maria's cheeks flushed. My grandmother. She was from Palermo. She raised me after my mother passed. I'm sorry if I... Palermo? Giuseppe's voice was rough with emotion and disuse. He switched to Sicilian dialect, the words tumbling out. "Picciota, you speak like my own mother, like home." Tears pricked at Maria's eyes. She understood him perfectly, and suddenly she was 12 years old again, sitting in her nonna's kitchen, learning the old words, the ones that weren't quite Italian, the ones that carried the soul of an island and its people. She responded in kind, her voice gentle. "My nonna always said the old words should not be forgotten. She said they carry the voices of those who came before." Giuseppe's hand shook as he reached out, not quite touching her but gesturing to the empty chair beside him. "Sit, please, just for a moment." Vincent looked at his father, then at Maria, and something shifted in his expression. "Please," he said quietly. It would mean a great deal to him. Maria glanced toward the kitchen, but Tom was nodding, his eyes bright. She sat, her heart hammering, but Giuseppe's smile steadied her. "Tell me about your grandmother," the old man said in Sicilian. "What was her name?" "Francesca Rizzo. She came here in 1962, after my grandfather died. She worked in a garment factory for 30 years. Giuseppe nodded slowly. "The same year I brought my family. We came on the same ship, perhaps, my Rosa and I. So many of us, leaving everything we knew. His eyes grew distant. Your nonna, she taught you well. This dialect. Most young people, even in Sicily, they don't speak it anymore. It's dying. She said it was our inheritance, Maria replied softly. More valuable than gold. She said every word carried a memory, and if we forgot the words, we forgot who we were. A wise woman. Giuseppe's voice cracked slightly. I have not heard these words spoken so purely since my Rosa passed. 5 years now. My children, my grandchildren, they speak English or classroom Italian. But this, he touched his chest, this reaches the heart. Around the table, the hard-faced men had softened. One of them, perhaps in his 30s, leaned toward Maria. My nonno used to speak like that. I wish I'd paid more attention when I was young. Giuseppe turned to his son Vincent. You see, this is what I have been telling you. We lose the old ways, and we lose ourselves. Vincent's expression was complicated, layers of emotion Maria couldn't quite read. Papa, we've tried to— I know. Giuseppe patted his son's hand. You have your world, your responsibilities. I am not criticizing, I am just grateful. He looked back at Maria, grateful that this young woman's nonna had the wisdom to pass down what matters. Maria felt tears threatening again. She died 2 years ago. Sometimes I speak the words alone in my apartment, just so I don't forget the sound of her voice. Then she is still with you, Giuseppe said firmly. The language is a bridge. Whenever you speak it, you walk across that bridge to her. For the next few minutes, Maria and Giuseppe talked. She told him about her nonna's village, the specific streets and churches Francesca had described. By some miracle, Giuseppe knew them. He'd had cousins in that very town. They compared memories like treasures, the old man's face growing more animated with each shared recognition. Finally, Maria stood reluctantly. I should take your orders. I don't want to keep you from your meal. You have given me something better than food, Giuseppe said. You have given me a piece of home, a piece of my Rosa. As she took their orders, the atmosphere at the table had transformed entirely. The men who'd seemed so intimidating were patient, kind even. One of them asked about her nonna's recipe for caponata. Another wanted to know if she'd ever been to Sicily herself. Only once, she admitted. The summer I was 12. Nonna took me to meet the family. It was— She paused, searching for words. It was like stepping into a dream. Everything she'd described, all the stories, they were real. Vincent spoke up. My father hasn't been back in 40 years. We've offered to take him, but he says it would break his heart to see how much has changed. Giuseppe nodded. Some things are better kept. In memory, preserved as they were. But Maria shook her head gently. My nonna said that too at first, but after we went, she told me she was glad. She said yes, things had changed, but the light was the same. The sea was the same. The taste of the bread was the same. The important things endure. The old man was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at his son. Perhaps she is right. Perhaps I have been afraid of disappointment when I should have had faith and endurance. Vincent's eyes were bright. We could go, Papa. This spring. I'll arrange everything. Perhaps, Giuseppe said softly. Perhaps we should. The meal continued, but it had become something more than a business lunch. Maria moved between her other tables, but she kept returning to Giuseppe's, bringing him extra bread the way her nonna had always said proper hospitality demanded, making sure his water glass stayed full. When the meal ended, Giuseppe insisted on speaking to Tom. With Vincent translating his more formal requests, he told the manager that Maria was a treasure, that her kindness and cultural knowledge were gifts that should be recognized. Tom beamed. She's special, that's for sure. We're lucky to have her. As the party prepared to leave, Giuseppe took Maria's hand in both of his. His skin was papery thin, marked with age spots, but his grip was warm. Thank you, Picciotta. You have reminded an old man why he crossed an ocean all those years ago. Not just for opportunity or safety, but to preserve something precious and pass it on. Your nonna would be proud of you. Maria's voice was thick with emotion. She would be honored to know she could bring you comfort. You will be here next Tuesday? Giuseppe asked hopefully. Every Tuesday, Maria confirmed. Then I will return, if that is acceptable to my son. Vincent smiled. and Maria saw a genuine affection there, the kind that transcends the harder edges of life. "Of course, Papa. Every Tuesday if you wish." After they left, Maria found herself in the kitchen, leaning against the cool steel counter. Tom appeared with a white envelope. "From Mr. Castellano. He said to thank you for your exceptional service." Inside was a tip that made her gasp, enough to cover her rent for 2 months. But there was also a note, written in careful script. "Your grandmother's legacy lives through you. That is worth more than any amount of money. But please accept this with our gratitude and respect." The Castellano family that night, in her small apartment. Maria opened the old wooden box where she kept her Nona's things. The recipe cards written in fading ink, the photographs of relatives she'd never met, the small medal of Saint Rosalia, patron saint of Palermo. She held the medal and spoke aloud in Sicilian, telling her Nonna about Giuseppe, about the surprise and joy in his eyes, about how the old words had built a bridge across loneliness and loss. The following Tuesday, Giuseppe returned, and the Tuesday after that, it became a ritual. Maria would greet him in Sicilian, and they would talk for a few minutes about the old country, about memories and traditions. Sometimes other family members would listen, learning phrases, asking about the meaning of words their grandparents had used. On the 4th visit, Giuseppe brought his daughter-in-law, a kind woman named Barbara, who asked Maria to write down some Sicilian phrases. "I want to learn," she said simply. "I want my children to know where they come from." 6 months later, Maria received an invitation to Giuseppe's 81st birthday celebration. It was to be held at Benedetto's, naturally. When she arrived thinking she was just working the event, the family insisted she sit with them as a guest. Giuseppe stood surprisingly steady and raised his glass. "This year, I have been blessed with an unexpected gift." This young woman reminded me that what we preserve, we keep alive, that the old ways and the new ways can walk hand in hand. Because of her, I will return to Sicily this spring. My son will take me. We will walk the streets my wife knew as a girl. We will stand where our ancestors stood. He looked directly at Maria. And I will go knowing that even here, across the ocean, the spirit of that place lives on, in people like you who carry it forward. Cent'anni, Picciotta, may you live 100 years and may you always remember where you came from. Everyone raised their glasses, and Maria found herself surrounded by warmth and acceptance, by a family who had welcomed her, simply because she had shown kindness and honored her heritage. Later, as the party wound down, Vincent approached her quietly. "My father is different now, lighter. He looks forward to Tuesdays. That's your doing." "I just spoke to him," Maria said. "No," Vincent corrected gently. "You saw him. Really saw him. You knew what he needed even before you said a word. That's not just language. That's wisdom. The kind your grandmother clearly passed on to you." Walking home that night, Maria